Hey there, Westchester University alumni. My name is Justin Sachoka, and welcome in to Ramblings Live. This is our platform where we get to reconnect with past alumni from Westchester University, from faculty and staff from Westchester University, or from community members as well. We're happy to have you here as part of the program. Today's program, it's a really good one. We're going to be talking to representatives of DCAP, which is the WC Autism Program at Westchester University. And I'm really excited to dive into this because I wasn't even aware that this was a program that exists at WCU. It actually didn't exist when I was there on campus. And I don't think that for many of us, it was something that was around. So we're going to talk about the founding of it, how it came to be. And we have one of the co-founders here actually with us on the show. So without any further ado, I'm going to first introduce Cherie Fishbaugh. Now, Cherie is the Director of Autism Services at Westchester University. Cherie, thanks so much for joining in with us today.
Thank you, Justin. It's good to be here.
So I'm going to talk to you first real quick, and we're going to bring David in second. But I do just want to ask you where it is that you're from, what brought you to WCU, because while you're not an alumni, you currently are the our Director of the Autism Services at Westchester University.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm originally from Ohio. I'm a Buckeye. Being out here in PA, that's some dangerous territory.
Yeah. Wow. You admitted that.
I did. And anybody who comes to my office gets to see like some Brutus attire and things around. But I actually came out here, about 14 years ago when Westchester University gave a seed grant to start Spark, which was the Southeastern Pennsylvania Autism Resource Center. And so providing services to the community. And then now it's been 5 years ago, we started DCAP and really made that transition to the university full time.
Yeah, and we're going to talk all about DCAP. We're going to bring David in to talk about that as well. But I first want to get started. For anybody that doesn't know what autism is, can you explain what autism is?
Sure. It's a neurological disorder. Primarily affects like communication and socialization. And then you might see some repetitive motor mannerisms or repetitive thinking. Most of when it comes to our students, what you're seeing is that, transitions are hard, which I know we'll talk about later when we talk about like COVID. Like,
Sure.
This has been a very rough year for us. But on the other side, when we look at autism, it's a different way of thinking. And so what we're seeing is this big switch in society of turning over saying, hey, listen, these are actually the people we want on our teams because they look at things differently. The attention to detail, the way that they're seeing certain projects, and also their perseverance is there. So when it comes to autism, we're looking at sometimes it can be difficult. They may appear shyer than usual, not read the social cues. So a lot of times people might say like, oh, this person's bossy, or well, may mistakenly come across as being rude when that's not the intent at all.
Sure.
So so that's pretty much like in a nutshell, autism.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I've heard a lot of the autism spectrum. Can you also explain, because I think that these are some of the terms that we'll be talking about throughout this, what is the autism spectrum exactly?
Absolutely. So that had changed when the new DSM-5 came out. When they talked about autism, there were like 5 diagnoses that people would hear about. One being autistic disorder, one being Asperger's syndrome, and then you had pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, and then you had Rett's disorder and childhood disintegrated disorder. When we look at autism spectrum disorder, what they ended up doing with the new DSM-5 is they ended up categorizing that, and they said, okay, listen, we're going to take some of autistic disorder or autistic disorder, we're going to take Asperger's, and we're going to look at PDD-NOS and say, there's a lot of similarities, and a lot of times people were confusing what the diagnostic criteria was for that. So when it came up with autism spectrum disorder, really they're looking at what skills are impacted and the areas, and they end up trying to combine those 3 disorders into one, and they put a leveling system of 1 to 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and that looked at where was that student or that person, how much were they impacted by the disorder. So
understood.
And then they actually added a new one called oh gosh, now of course I forget, like the social pragmatic communication disorder for those students or those people who had some of the same characteristics, but they didn't have so much that insistence on sameness and that behavior component that
Okay.
some of the formally diagnosed as Asperger's were having. So in that, when we think about DCAP, we're actually, when you think of it from autism spectrum disorder, many of the students coming in have that former diagnosis of Asperger's.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, which we try to stay away from. Oftentimes you hear people talk about it as being higher functioning. And I'm telling you, that will raise red flags in the community immediately because, you know, what does that mean? A lot of times higher functioning in the autistic community, they say like, what, just because we're verbal or just because we're nonverbal, we're lower functioning. And so we try to stay away from those terms, definitely.
Understood. Wow. Yeah, I'm fascinated by all of this, and it's so interesting, the research that has got into it. I'm sure is always ever changing as well, and appreciate you explaining all of that. I do want to talk about DCAP, and I can't not talk about DCAP without David. So we're going to bring David Cook in. Now, David graduated from Westchester University in 2019. Is that correct? As a graduate student, your undergrad in 2017?
Yes.
There we go. So
2017 and 19.
You, David, bleed purple and gold.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I love this. You work at Westchester University now.
I do, yes. Institutional research. I'm a data scientist.
So what does a data scientist do? I didn't even know that Westchester University had data scientists. What's that job?
So we analyze data for different aspects of campus, enrollment, admissions, degree completions, mainly those sorts of things. We also work with the instructor surveys that students get at the end of the semester to say, okay, my instructor did really well in these areas, but not so well in these. And the instructors get feedback on how they can improve. And
Interesting. So it's a lot of data that's coming in that you're looking at. There's a lot of students at Westchester, a lot of professors.
Yes.
So imagine that's a lot of paperwork.
A lot of students and a lot of professors. Oh yeah.
I remember the forms that were handed out. Is it still forms, or have we moved to online now?
We have moved to online.
Okay. That's good. So David, can you explain to us what DCAP is?
So DCAP it stands for WCU Autism Program, but to people on the spectrum, it means so much more than that. It means connecting with others on the spectrum. It means inclusivity. It means relating to others that are like me, because we're all a community and we can all learn from each other.
David, when you went to Westchester University and you started, the program wasn't there. It didn't exist. And you got to see it start and I think have a hand in it. Can you explain to us, I guess, what life was like before DCAP and then what life was like afterwards?
Okay, so this is a great story. So I had a lot of trouble adjusting to college. In 2013, I got there and I thought that it was going to be just like high school and I'd have an easy time making friends and all that. And it was hard freshman year. I wasn't really part of any social groups. I didn't know where to find them. And then finally I started making friends with people in Brandywine Hall. I lived there for the first 3 years. And then sophomore year became a bit easier, but to make friends and all that. But then once my dorm friends moved out and the summer came, it got hard again. And then junior year, it was unfortunately more of the same. But luckily, at the end of the junior year was DCAP. And it came at a time in my life when things were changing very quickly for the better. And on March 30th, 2016, at Sykes Room 119, on the other side of the food court, we had a luncheon to discuss the future of what would become DCAP. It didn't have a name yet, but me and some other people on the spectrum decided that we would call it DCAP because it made sense. It made sense. Had the WC in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Had to have WC.
Had to add that in.
What
And
I
yeah,
really
go Cherie.
what I really liked was, David, I even wrote down your quote from when we were talking about naming the program, because we were getting a lot of mixed reviews of, do you put autism in the name of your program? Would that deter people from coming because it says autism? And I still remember David being the voice behind it. And he said, and I can quote this because it was on a Post-it note forever on my desk that said, if autism is the name of the program, how are my friends supposed to find me? And
Okay.
that pretty much nailed it for me. Like, we need autism in the name of the program.
I
Yeah.
had forgotten that I said that, so
Yeah, I wrote it down in quotes on a Post-it note, and it sat there for years, actually, until we moved into
I love that.
2019.
Well,
okay.
it clearly
yeah. Thanks
is
for
a
reminding me.
it clearly is a fantastic program that was put together, and something that was put together out of a need, and a need that I didn't know existed. Something that and I think many other students at Westchester University didn't realize, that there was a issue, that there were people who were having a hard time making friends, and that it makes sense, David. People, when you move out of the dorm, that is a really easy place and spot to be able to make friends, but it very quickly, all of a sudden, those people move out of the dorm, and so it's difficult to be able to do that year in and year out. And I can understand that it can be it can be hard. And when I think about Westchester University and looking at the opportunities that are there, it's so cool that everybody can find a way to help. And what was created with DCAP has helped, I am sure, so many other people. And I wish that it was there sooner, but thankfully it's there now. And you're in a unique position, David, that you've been able to see it grow. And so my question, and this is for both of you, so you can both chime in on this, started in 2016 on what, the 30th of, was it April, did you say, or May?
March.
Oh, there you go. March 30th of 2016 in Psych Student Unions, when DCAP was born. How has it grown since then?
So when we first started out, it was, we didn't have any meetings until fall of that year. And we were in Wayne Hall in some little room, and it didn't feel like a proper home for DCAP. And then each of the next 2 semesters, we moved first to 703 South High Street, and then around the corner from the former Burrito Loco to our current location on Linden Street, where the new Ram Shop is. That development being so new that I didn't get to see it. Came right after I graduated. And so DCAP has been in that location for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And how many students
feels like
partake in it? Oh, that's good.
Well, when I started, there were just 4 students.
Okay.
And the numbers grew exponentially. We had probably about 10 students in spring of 2017, then probably around 16 in that fall. Then we started getting like 10 more every year. And wow. I haven't been back to DCAP for 2 years since I graduated, but they're probably like 50 or 60 now.
We're
That's
actually
amazing.
at 42, David, and
all right.
Definitely expect 50 plus in the fall.
Yeah.
You were right on with those numbers.
How does DCAP work exactly? So are we talking about a once a week program that takes place? Is this something that's available every single day? What goes on at DCAP?
Okay, so originally DCAP was sort of just a once a week thing, but then and we only had 2 GAs at the time, but then we expanded.
Okay.
And people were there every day, and I remember going there like twice, sometimes 3 times a week, usually on Friday, especially in grad school when I didn't have any classes then. And I usually picked either Monday or Tuesday to go as well. And it was nice to we all sat around this table, we played board games, sometimes somebody brought in food, or we watched a movie, all kinds of things. every week there was like a special event. You know, sometimes there were guest speakers. One time there was this guy from that worked at SAP that was at the Autism at Work program. He did that, and then he went on to become an employee there, and then he talked with us. And it was nice for us to know that, you know, it was possible to find a fulfilling job after graduation.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I can't imagine how inspiring it must be to have a program like this, and how much hope it must be able to give to so many people.
Yes.
To hear from speakers, I mean, it's got to be incredible. And Cherie, what kind of programs go on today? What else might somebody expect?
Yeah, so for students coming in, like their first year, right, we really want to make sure that they can acclimate to campus and feel like they belong. So a big part of DCAP mission is making sure that we're building this inclusive campus climate, right, and community. So our students, when they come in and become we call it a member of DCAP, like it's a community, you want to become a member of it. And right now it's about students coming in, they have about a 5-hour commitment to DCAP. So it's 1 hour where they come in, they meet with a skill specialist to work on their goals. It's very important to understand that the students coming into DCAP they are creating their goals for the semester as well as weekly. And there are 5 main areas that they are creating goals in. And that includes one, this is executive functioning. So looking at organization, time management, maybe some impulse control, decision making. Then we look at that socialization piece that David was talking about, making sure that, you know, what do you want to get involved in? What are your common interests? How do you want to get involved on campus? How do you want to interact with other DCAP members? And really making sure you're bringing up that community. And then we look at independence. So over 60% of our students live on campus in inclusive housing. There's no specialized housing for our students, as David had already talked about. And there's independent, like, how do I make appointments? How do I get my hair cut? You know, like grocery shop budget. David mentioned that Ram shop downstairs. It has lots of buying temptations. So, you know, we have to talk about those budgeting skills. Then we also look at self-advocacy. A big part of any student coming to campus is learning not only to self-advocate to your staff and to your faculty, but also to peers, right? What you like, what you don't like, what you're okay with. But then that big piece too is to parents. How do you start talking to parents about things that you want, and that you whether you want to live on campus, live off campus, get a job on campus, off campus? And that brings me to the 5th area that they're making goals in, and that is that employment, that career readiness. What are you doing to prepare yourself? Because again, looking at DCAP and its mission, we want to look at building this inclusive campus environment with direct supports to our students, indirectly helping our faculty and staff across campus understand autism and support our students. But then we also want to look at our retention rates, right? And what's the employment rate once you graduate? Like, it's okay to get a degree, but we want you to be able to use that degree to be fulfilled and employment. So
absolutely
amazing
on that. And so that's what it looks like. So students come in, they work on their goals with their skill specialist. They come in for study hours where it's strictly just that, a place to come in and study. There are no tutors. They still utilize the LARC, all of those places on campus. And then they have the social hangouts that David was talking about, playing games and hanging out, going up, get pizza, edible cookie dough, whatever it may be.
I remember going to Kiwi the day that picture was taken.
Right.
The day that picture
when Westchester was on strike.
Right.
Okay. That's when you went for Kiwi. I forgot about Kiwi.
If only Kiwi was still there. If only.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's there anymore, right? I think it's gone.
Yeah. I think it closed September 23rd, 2018. I remember seeing a Facebook post about that.
Oh, wow.
I was like, if only I could go in there one more time to say goodbye.
I think there's some other Kiwis around. You might be able to reconnect again.
I know there's others. I just did.
Yeah, I know. It's convenient when it's up the road. No doubt. So when it comes to DCAP, that's obviously, as David, you pointed out, Dub C autism program. What about other universities? that are out there. I never realized that this was a program that exists, and I would assume that other universities probably have similar programs. And if they do, how does this compare to that?
Yeah.
I haven't researched this one, so I'm not quite sure how other programs, other universities across the country are. So I don't have a good answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah. So
But Cherie?
the unique thing about DCAP is it really came out of an initiative from our Pennsylvania state system of higher education.
Okay.
And so there were actually originally 4 PASHE schools that said that they were going to start a program like this. So it was here at Westchester. There's Kutztown University, Edinburgh, and IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And then Slippery Rock added their program a couple years ago as well, trying to start that one up. But actually, when it comes to, we were the 41st program in the country that was recognized for autism supports. So
wow,
now there are almost 80. So that's just showing this big evolvement. And when it comes to our program too, is like I said, Pennsylvania took a big initiative. Most programs are, the highest number of programs happen to be here in the state of Pennsylvania, because previously what you would find are these types of programs are held at private universities. Drexel, St. Joe, Eastern has a program that have been around. Mercyhurst here in PA all have programs that have been around for a while. So to see this come to a public university or to a state university was unreal.
Oh, it's huge.
Right. And so in that, what was unique too about Westchester is they really worked together, and they decided that what they wanted to do was, this was such an important initiative by administration that they decided to make it its own program. So at many universities, what you'll find is the program might be housed in their disability services office. And what we did here at Westchester was, we provided DCAP of, here's your separate program, and put there was a lot of hired initiatives that went into place as to how they wanted to build the program, use best practice and credentials, so that you really had somebody who had expertise in autism and working with the community running the program.
Well, let's talk about the pandemic, because I imagine that obviously that's something that nobody has planned for, and amazing that the university has set this so high. They made it its own program, as other universities, like you said, have really kind of bundled this in with something else. How does the pandemic affect, and how has it affected DCAP?
Well, one of the things, David, I think you can attest to this too, is that our community does not like change. And this was a huge curveball for us of change and lots of transition, a lot of unknowns. Something that's comorbid with autism is anxiety. So now you put all of these, you threw all these curveballs with no answers to a population that already has high anxiety. So so what we really did, when the pandemic first hit and we heard that we were not coming back, like a lot of times, you had that 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to prepare. Most of the professors and staff went ahead and took that 2 weeks. The announcement, I believe, was made on a Wednesday. That Thursday, we were already offering support groups.
Wow. That's amazing. You reacted quickly.
That's how fast we have to work. I mean, again, when that announcement went out, my phone was blowing up with Group B messages, phone calls coming in, emails, because it was a change that hit that was not expected. So it was, how do we help support our students? And so we, like I said, started a support system, like just talking that Thursday. And then we offered supports those next 2 weeks before classes started, getting a lot of feedback from the students. One of the big things about DCAP is that I typically talk a lot about it's student run. Like the developments that have been made. When David first started, our biggest focus was socialization. That was it. And that's what came to me and asked about, like, how do we focus on the social piece and being more included on campus? And then we've grown from there. And same thing when it came to the pandemic, is I wanted information from my students. What would make this more feasible? So They all have their skill specialists they're working with, but then they also met with me just as a familiar face as well to be networked with them. David can attest to this. I put surveys out like crazy to get the voices heard. And so I had lots of surveys going out to students. Is it okay that you're virtual here? We put groups virtual, we put Hangouts virtual. The greatest thing that we have actually seen from this is the leadership amongst our students. So Hangouts are fully run by DCAP students. They do it virtually. They're running them. They're figuring out what they're going to do during those virtual Hangouts, whether play Jackbox games, have private session, watch parties, talking, YouTube, Among Us, whatever it may be that they decide and they run those. Those picked up to 7 days a week. They were having Hangouts. Yeah,
Okay.
it was incredible.
I didn't know this part at all, actually.
Yeah.
So
Such leadership.
That's fascinating.
They also, from a study standpoint, working with colleagues, they had talked about like just doing virtual study halls where students would come on and just have a place to kind of meet and be held accountable. So I asked, would they be interested? Unanimously, yes, they wanted these virtual study just because not having that motivation, that structure to study at home in those home environments. So we have these sign-ons for study halls all run by DCAP students. So it's like, hey, we have study hall at 2:00. There's quote unquote study hall monitors, right? Like, hey, are you going to be here or not? Are all DCAP students and they run 5 days a week. And that's why I talk about
that's amazing.
Leadership opportunities where these students really took the lead because we didn't have study hall at DCAP is you come in, you find a chair, you study, you leave. Like there's nobody monitoring.
Study hall, there's like, there's like, I guess 3 different areas in DCAP. There's like the corner of the TV, there's the main table, and then there's like the cubicles on the other side. And well, that feels like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, how it is now, but yeah, it is just like a nice quiet place to study.
Yeah, great spot to study, I'm sure.
Yes.
And it really is, they're all adults. So it's, them taking the lead and ownership of that. And that's what like I said, that we saw throughout the pandemic is the students actually stepping up and wanting more of these leadership opportunities, having their voices heard of this is what we would like to do more of. And that's really where DCAP has gone throughout the pandemic. We did open up in the fall for in-person services.
Okay.
So we're open Monday through Thursday. Either my assistant director or myself. So my assistant director is there Monday and Tuesday. I'm there Wednesday and Thursday. And the students can come in and utilize that. So we have 6 students who are living on campus currently that access DCAP. And then we also have about 4 to 5 commuter students that come in just to study. They have a place that they could walk
just to have a spot.
Absolutely.
Wow. Amazing how that has been affected and how you've adjusted to that. That's incredible. I have just a couple of questions for you left. And David, I want you to answer the last question here. But before I get to you, David, I want to know, I know that the symbol of DCAP has changed. What is the meaning behind the new symbol? And I actually want to bring up here the current symbol that it is that you have. We can see it here a little bit. What's the meaning behind this?
So when I was at DCAP, a number of years ago, the symbol was the puzzle piece. And while it's certainly a nice symbol to say that everyone fits into the big puzzle of life, I think that the infinity symbol, which DCAP currently has, it sends the message that everybody, no matter what, can do anything they aspire to do. And that's the point of life, isn't it? This is a much more powerful message than what the puzzle piece could have conveyed. And that's why we have that.
I think that's awesome. I absolutely love that. I think that's awesome. Now, Cherie, for people that want to get involved, I would well, I want to ask, are there multiple ways that people can get involved? So obviously students that want to partake, how do they, or parents that want to learn more about this program who have students that might be able to participate in this? And then from the community standpoint, employers that maybe want to reach out about partnerships, or people that want to volunteer in some way, how can community members get involved? How can current students get involved? You can give us the rundown on that.
Absolutely. So when it comes to students looking at inquiring about DCAP, applying to DCAP, we suggest go to our webpage and www.wcupa.edu/DCAP. If you go to our webpage, there's an application process there. Every first Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock, we do inquiry night. And inquiry night is to answer questions from parents as well as students. So we ask prospective students to prepare 2 or 3 questions. I typically have about 2 DCAP students there with me who will answer questions, because as you can see, even from this ramblings, there's some information that can come from me, but it is much more powerful to hear it from my students. Like,
sure,
they're living the experience. And so I usually give a 15-20-minute rundown of DCAP, and then the students answer the questions and run with it from there. As for community members getting involved, employers getting involved, something that's really cool is I am involved in the Neurodiversity at Work group here in the Eastern region. It's something that we're starting, and that's actually our students. We wrote a grant, and we got one of the Eagles Autism Foundation grants. So
oh, wow.
we have a current student as well as one of our alumni building the website for neurodiversityatworkgroup.com is the website, and it is to link employers to employees and to talk about
how that's amazing.
Network. It's a big networking. So that's in development currently. It's working. It's not as interactive as we want right now, because again, this is giving the opportunity to build it from the ground up. So that takes a little bit of time.
It's amazing.
But that's a big part. And if employers would like to partner, they can always just reach out to me personally, and I can get them involved with the group until we have that website up and going, and they can get involved. As for the community, we offer so many different programs for our students. They do a lot of panels across the local community of talking about their experiences, helping give advice to parents, to prospective students, whether it's Westchester or not. So our students have talked in general classrooms as well as conferences across the local area. They've actually spoken at the National Autism Conference. So there's a lot you can really get involved with. Hear our students talk about it, and we're always looking of how can we continue to help high schoolers transition into college. So this year we partnered with Kutztown to run the College Autism Readiness Retreat. This year we're piloting the College Autism Readiness Retreat 2, which will be housed at Westchester campus, versus the car for the #1 program, like the first car is housed at Kutztown. And we are continuing to build these programs and give the opportunities to the students in the community.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for all that information. David, I want to end with a question to you. And so what advice would you give to any students who are entering the program? What would you tell them?
I would say plan for your career, especially if you're about to graduate. It's never too early to start. Get an internship or 2, job shadow, volunteer with companies in your field. You want to have practical experience along with your college degree. It looks great on your resume, and you'll get used to what life after college will look like. I wish I had done this when I started. It's never too early to start.
That's great advice.
But also you want to have fun in college too, because you might think at the beginning that you have a lot of time there, but then 4 years goes by and you wonder what happened with the time. So you want to have fun too, but you also need to think about your career. So
that's what people go to college for. So that's fantastic advice. Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining on with Ramblings Live. This has flown by, and I am so appreciative of all the information that you both were able to share and taking time out of your day to come join us. And I am so proud to be Westchester University alumni, to hear programs like this that exist that weren't there when I graduated in 2014, but are there now, because it certainly was an issue. Like David, what you had said about how you had difficulty at first. I went there and I never realized that there was other people that were having those problems. And I'm just so thankful to hear of programs like this that have come to fruition, and people like you have stepped up to the plate to be able to help to create this, and for Cherie to help facilitate everything is just absolutely amazing. And kudos to all of you for doing that and for continuing on what is some absolutely incredible work and making Westchester University proud. There's no doubt about that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having us, Justin.
Well, thanks for being on.
Thank you very much.
See you soon. So that is Cherie and David, who are members of DCAP. And if you want to tune into some more Ramblings Live, they're continuing right here on the Westchester University alumni page. Make sure you come back and check out our Facebook page for more ways for you to connect with other faculty, staff, alumni from Westchester University. Until next time, I'm Justin Sachoka. See you soon.